Hey guys, welcome to Grounded Roots Healing. I'm Jason and I'm an alchemist. And I want to talk about divine timing. And I was thinking about it today, and I think a better description for divine timing would be divine coordination. Because when you think, most people, when they think of divine timing, they think of themselves and the timing in their lives and how things are going to happen when they're supposed to happen. When the reality is, this is happening on a grand scale to everybody on the ascension process. And it's already written on these timeline records where everybody is intricately connected and everyone's story interacts with everyone else's story. So the coordination involved in this system is incredible. It's mind-boggling. You're in a matrix. You're in a simulation. It's the most advanced simulation. Well, I don't know if there's anything bigger than this outside of here, but as far as what I'm concerned and what my feeble human mind can comprehend, this is absolutely incredibly intricate. Just think of the cells in your body, the billions of cells in your body that all have to be coordinated together. This is what's happening. You're a data system, and these individual organelles, these little cells, are interacting with each other and doing their job to create this avatar that you then inhabit on a grand play scale. So when you start to sit down and think about this, it's absolutely insane. And this is why it's so convincing. This is why no one deems it possible. If you have a scientific mind, you can't comprehend this, although that is changing, and people are starting to understand that the compute power that we're starting to create ourselves with these AI systems, just extrapolate that ahead 100 years, and what would you be able to do? So, divine coordination, in my opinion, and I have received downloads of this, as an analogy of the way that this entire system works, because the reality is you're trying to translate, like I said, an immensely complex system into 3D ideas that make sense to a human mind that is firmly planted in this matrix. So the best you can do is an analogy, unless you are, let's say, trained in advanced scientific knowledge. Even then, it's extremely convincing. It's extremely illusory. The answers are difficult to find, and this is on purpose. You don't want to be able to figure this out using scientific 3D methods, because then what would be the fun in that? Although there are a few hints in there. There's a few glitches and a few errors, let's say, like the double slit experiment, or there's a mirror thing that a lot of people have been doing. Doesn't make a lot of sense. But those are on purpose too. A being that has created a system that is this intricate doesn't make mistakes. So these little glitches and things that we like to think we've caught, we're smart enough to figure out. It's hilarious. They're put there on purpose. They're little clues so that this all starts to make sense. It's a play. You're in a play. So the double slit experiment, how hard would it have been to... It wasn't overlooked. Come on. This wasn't something that was overlooked. It was put there so that we would find it, and we would some people would start to understand, and then it would trickle to eventually you'd get to a point where spirituality and science would combine, and they would start to agree with each other, which is exactly where we're getting now. Philosophy, spirituality, religion, science, they're all describing the same thing, and they're using different language to describe it. So, this has been mankind's challenge since the beginning, and it's trying to, it's like a unified field theory, where everything makes sense under one explanation. But in order for that to be the truth, where everything makes sense under one explanation, you need to be able to design the matrix itself, which means you need to be God, which you are. But down here, you're quite limited on what you can comprehend. So, for whatever reason, God has been trickling this information to me slowly over the last year and a half. But, in fact, I've been going through my entire life having training in this regard. Based on which university degree I have, all the things that have interested me. The mini spiritual awakening I had in 2013, where I read a bunch of religious texts and tried to solve this problem from a mind-based solution. This was all part of my training. It was all to accumulate knowledge and understanding so that when I got to this point, I would be wise enough to make the conclusions I have to make. So my analogy, like I was saying, is I like to use the analogy of vinyl records. So the 3D world that we're in has timelines, and each timeline is a vinyl record, and there are many timelines stacked on top of each other, but I usually limit it to 8 as just for demonstration purposes. And at each level or each record, there's obviously the beginning and the end of time, which isn't real. It's a linear sequence of events as you rotate and go around the record. And on each record as well, there are a copy of every person. Every avatar has a copy. So you can think of the next level up, there's a whole new group of all of us. This is all stacked on top of each other. It's all energetic and it's all frequency based. Each record is actually just a different vibrational frequency. So they really are just sandwiched together. But for analogy's purpose, so we can comprehend what I'm talking about here, I like to say there's separation. So when you go up a level, you're just raising your frequency up a level. And think of the coordination for this. Think of the data that's running on this system in order for this to function. So you can understand how big this illusion is that we're in. Now, we've all heard of the New Earth split, or the big event that's coming where we're going to separate. Well, in reality is we're already separate. This coordinated divine timing, which is just the way it's going to go. When your consciousness is at a higher level on one, I'd say the higher records, the people on the lower records, we don't drive, we don't communicate. And also the other avatars on your record, you can look into their eyes and you don't see the light, because their consciousness is actually down lower or maybe even higher. If you interacted with a being that was at a higher timeline than you, though, you would be amazed by the person. They would seem magical to you. Whereas if you're interacting with an avatar where their consciousness is at a lower level, they seem asleep. They seem like they can't understand the things that you understand. So as it stands right now, there are a lot of people on the lower records. Now, I usually put the cutoff. The bottom 3 records are old Earth, then there's a break, and then the top records are where we're at. So you can be at varying levels in the ascension process. You can understand each other, but eventually there's going to come a point where the bottom 3 records and the top 5 records, they can't even communicate anymore. So, and it's getting close. As I go through this world now, I start trying to interact with people who are vibrating lower than I am. And it's like talking to an NPC or an automaton. Like, they're just going through the motions. They're just enacting programming that has been burnt into them, or their consciousness isn't even there, and they're just part of the system. That avatar is being run by the matrix itself, and it's very limited in what it can do. So it's a lonely place to be, but fortunately, there are many, many of us jumping up timelines or records. Now, we're going to get to a point on the linear sequence of events. As each of these records spin, we go through time together, where the bottom and the top won't even see each other anymore. So, but for right now, you can think of the internet as a lens into the lower timelines. Don't look through that lens very often. But, well, for example, what problems do I feel in my current situation where I'm sitting? I feel amazing. I'm up here in northern Canada working with a bunch of people who are very firmly asleep and being controlled by the matrix, but I know what's happening, and I understand what I'm doing here and the lessons that I'm learning. Very intricate lessons, which I do need to learn, and this is a good place to learn them because I'm essentially isolated. But here in my little bubble, in my energetic bubble around myself, I feel no problems. There are no problems. If I speak with my family, the same is true. If I ignore everything outside and I don't look into that 3D lens of the lower three timelines, i.e. Twitter, social media in general, the news, any of this stuff is like a lens into the 3D world. You don't want to absorb that energy as little as possible. What you're trying to do is stay in the highest timeline. You want your bubble to be impenetrable, and you want none of that to get through. Now, as you ascend higher, it'll get easier and easier to block this stuff out. You can actually look at it and not let it bother you, or let it infiltrate your energetic field would be a better way to describe it. But most people aren't there. So don't kid yourself and stay away from that. Now, we're existing in the same time and space. I'm going around in a 5D world. I absolutely am. My mindset, my vision, my thoughts, my peace is 5D. I'm living 5D at the same time while I interact in a 3D world, layered on top of each other. This is what everyone else is doing when they're obsessed with the news and worried about everything and like being run by the matrix programming. I'm outside of this now. I feel it. I know the truth. However, there will come a point when we can no longer see each other. These energies just don't belong in the 5D. So when we get to the linear sequence of events where the big event happens is where the split happens, the full split. The split is already started. You're already in New Earth if you're living the way that I am talking about, where you are at peace and you are unfazed by the stuff going on around outside of you, because it's all nonsense. It's all illusions. I mean, even YouTube, don't take my channel for example. Of course, take my channel for example. Don't watch stuff. I'm just trying to point you to go inward and look inside yourself for the answers. It's nice to have these little videos from people like myself and many others on YouTube that point you in the right direction. But there is a lot of disinformation and a lot of people that are, they mean well, but they're sending you on a wild goose chase. Now, the reality of this is you're going to go in the direction that you were intended to go no matter what. You're in a play, so this is part of the way you get to the point where you're at peace no matter what's going on, is the realization that you are God, you are here playing a role as a human, in my case, Jason, and none of this is serious. None of it. So, God the matrix, the system, the 3D records, it's divine coordination. It's divine. It's divine timing. Yes, everything happens when it's supposed to happen. But I think that term doesn't do it justice. And the scale of the coordination of the system is mind-boggling. And I think once you start to comprehend that, you have no choice but to ascend further. You have no choice. You're in this. You start to comprehend how big this is, and you start to realize that you're at the mercy of it. You can't control this any more than anyone else, and you just got to sit back and relax and enjoy the ride. Do what your intuition tells you to do. Learn the lessons, but you're not going to get left behind. You're not. If you wrote the story for yourself to ascend in this lifetime, it's going to happen. It will. You just need to let go. Go with the flow. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. Merrily, 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 life is but a dream. How profound is that little song? Anyway, I'll leave it there. Like I always say, I hope this video finds you well. I love you all, and we'll see you soon.